What's up guys, it's Pliskin here and welcome to our third Q&A. I never thought we'd be making this many of these, but again, they're just that much fun to do. So without further ado, let's get into the questions you guys have asked me on the last two polls. And if you want to have your question shown up in like one of these videos, when I make like those little polls, check the community tab. I'll usually post like a random picture and then ask you guys to be like, okay, yeah, like go ahead and put your questions here. So if you have something that you want to, have come up in these videos, that's where you gotta look. So our first question comes from Chico Bico, who's asking me if I've ever heard of Snatcher and Police Knots, which, if memory serves correct, are the visual novels that Kojima did before he started doing Metal Gear. You actually see some Metal Gear characters like pop up in, I think it's Police Knots, whereas Snatcher is just a really lame ripoff of Blade Runner, because Kojima doesn't have a creative thought in his head. He just copies things he sees in movies. But yeah, I have heard of these games, and I have heard bits and pieces of their OSTs. I never really got too into them. In regards to visual novels, the Fate Stay Night visual novel, the original one, was the one that I was really into, and the only visual novel I really got into. So it's not really my kind of thing unless it's a story and characters that really resonate within me. But who knows, maybe I'll go on YouTube while I'm like working out or doing stuff for work, filling out paperwork. I'll look up the OSTs for these games. I always appreciate the recommendation when it comes to video game OSTs, so thanks Chico Bico. I'll definitely check this out. Alright, the next question is coming from Jumbus, and he's asking what I think about Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. Now, those of you who are around Christmas time or towards the end of last year know that I got a lot of comments asking me to go over Portable Ops, so what I ended up doing is that I got a PSN card, and then I bought Portable Ops on PS Vita. But then I realized I got Portable Ops Plus, that doesn't come with the campaign, it's just a bunch of pretty much VR mission sort of things. So then I had to go and spend more money to get the actual Portable Ops. I liked the story premise and setup, but the gameplay was just atrocious. The controls were bad even for Metal Gear standards. I don't like how I can't really look up. If you're gonna have a very kind of restrictive or fixed camera, I would have preferred if they did a top down like the classics, or did fixed camera angles or dynamic camera angles like in the classic Resident Evils or the tanker mission, because the way it is now, it's just it feels like it's trying to follow the trends of third-person shooters without going with the control scheme and camera system necessary for that. We've talked about how important a camera system is, especially for a stealth game, so the fact that this game doesn't have a good camera system is just kind of off-putting for me. Now we got a really fun question from Suckass Mort, who says, if you were to be stranded on a Halo CE map with nothing but the Magnum, which would it be? Okay, you don't specify if this is campaign or if this is a multiplayer map. You don't specify for how long I'm gonna be here. You don't specify if I'm gonna be alone. So I'm gonna walk through the two scenarios I pictured in my head. The first is being stranded on a multiplayer map forever with nothing but the Magnum there to shoot myself when I inevitably go crazy from the solitude. And in that case, I would pick Battle Creek just because there is running water, so I'd have something to drink. There's trees there, so I'd probably be able to eat some tree bark for a while, whereas a lot of the other maps, there's no source of food, or it's too cold or something like that. I mean, you might think, oh yeah, go to Death Island, but Death Island is just surrounded by seawater, so okay. And yeah, you don't really see any animal life or fruits anywhere, so tree bark would probably be what I'd be eating. So yeah, I'd probably just be on Beaver Creek and then take myself out after years of going crazy and eating tree bark. If we're talking about a campaign mission though, I'd probably choose to be stuck on the part of Installation 04 where the second mission takes place, because again, there's running water, there's a lot of trees for tree bark. If there's Covenant there, I don't know if I'd really want to be fighting them with the Magnum, because the Magnum is supposed to be firing a caliber that's hard to handle for a fucking Spartan, so it would probably just shatter my wrists. I would probably just try to find a way to turn this into some kind of carbine by putting a stock onto it so it's a little more manageable. I'd hide from the Covenant more so than I'd try to fight them. Worst case scenario, I get hunted down and killed really fast. Another scenario is that it's just totally empty and I wander around again till I go crazy. Mind you, there is a lot of space to cover here, so at least like there's that openness. Best case scenario, I find a really cute UNSC like engineer that can like help understand Forerunner technology to make our lives easier, and then I can just go around foraging for tree bark and water, and we can have a couple kids and raise them on this peaceful part of installation 04. Like that wouldn't be too bad. Now we have a question from Jamie's or Jaime's, not sure how that is, 2025. He asks, what is my favorite boss in Metal Gear? I have an entire video, albeit a little rough around the edges with editing with sound. I was trying this thing during the transitions where I'd keep them louder than everything else, but it ended up being very jarring, distracting, and uncomfortable. But I do have a video out there talking about my favorite Metal Gear boss and why I believe that is my favorite Metal Gear boss. I think I have it titled The Best Boss Fight in Metal Gear, so I'm not even going to bother linking it down below. He then asked me what I think of the Splinter Cell games. The older ones I had a lot of trouble getting into just because of a lot of the menu-based controls. It's a lot to like get over to really get in the flow of things. I really enjoyed Blacklist. I like the level up system with the guns. I like how there's multiple approaches to the stealth. I like how you get like story options where you can either kill or spare people. It's very simple in PS3, but I get into that. I like how it has this really cool hub. Maybe I'll like do some recording and like talk about it in full one day, but for now, I'll say I definitely like the newer Splinter Cells more so than I like the older Splinter Cells. Now our next question comes from Samuel Antonio Castillo Meza, who's asking me, related to Metal Gear, what's your favorite sneaking suit or fatigues? Now I'm gonna be honest with you guys. From a practical standpoint, I hate almost every single outfit that Snake wears. As someone who cosplays as Snake every time there's a convention, you see these straps right here that seem to be on every outfit? It's pretty much the halfway point of a vasectomy, and it's extremely uncomfortable. So when I see Snake's outfits, this is really what I'm thinking about, because I know how much this hurts. That being said, in regards to my favorite Snake design overall, for fatigues, I'm gonna say Venom Snake, because this shit just looks cool. And for a sneaking suit, I'd probably go with the Metal Gear Solid 2 sneaking suit, just because that's like my favorite Snake as a character. I just really like how it fits into like both the tanker setting and arsenal gear. It's the most different out of all the sneaking suits, and I can really appreciate it for that. So now we got one from Zyethel, who's asking me for the best balanced Ridge Racer map for multiplayer. He wants to get my sandbox view on it. When it comes to games like Ridge Racer, it's not so much about the sandbox. It's very much a mechanics-driven game. And the mechanics here are all about knowing when to speed up, when to slow down, how to turn, and getting used to the patterns and rhythms of the maps. So there's not so much a sandbox discussion to be had here. But for the multiplayer, I will say, play with the medium speed cars, because if you try to use the full speed cars, it's just gonna crash your frame rate and you're not gonna be able to play. Now, I'm not the type that usually gives a shit about frame rates or resolutions and all this kind of stuff, but when the game becomes like unplayable because you can't match your turns and you can't get your timing right because the frame rate is so bad, there's definitely a problem there if I can see it. So yeah, all the Ridge Racer maps are good. Everything about Ridge Racer is great. Just use the medium speed cars for multiplayer. Now, this isn't a question, but I do need to say something on this. Garcia says he just beat Halo C on Legendary and he can't wait for Halo 2 and everything onwards. First off, blessings from Kofi, the one true God, be upon you. May fortune and good things come to your family. May he watch over you and your kin with the love of his heart, with the fearlessness of his eyes, with the power of his being. Blessings of Kofi. Good job on playing Halo CE. In regards to Halo 2, do not play this on Legendary. Do not even play this on Heroic. Halo 2 is a difficult game because it's not balanced well. It's not difficult in the sense where it's like, okay, I can, learn the systems, I can learn the shields and health, I can learn how to apply different weapons to different enemies. No. Halo 2 is all about like the headshot meta and snipers, and it's just not fun on harder difficulties. ODST is it's pretty good. It's pretty balanced on legendary, I'd say. There are some parts that get really annoying, specifically when there's snipers involved. Halo 3, you get a little bit of the jackal snipers and some bullshit, but you can manage to play it on legendary. Halo Reach is going to have a lot of bullshit because again the sandbox is, not very well balanced. But yeah, I'd have to say like Halo 2 definitely play on normal or easy, and the rest of them probably stick closer to heroic. After all, that is what Bungie said is the canonical difficulty for Halo. Now, Leon Wick is asking which Resident Evil remake game do I think is the best, and those of you who have been around for a while will know that I prefer the Resident Evil 3 remake. Now, I like Resident Evil 2 remake, I like Resident Evil 4 remake, you have the horror and survival, you have the action and survival. I think Resident Evil 3 remake is a good balance in the middle of those. I definitely like the dodge mechanic much better than the knife parrying system. I like the dodge mechanic much better than the use the knife to get out of jail free card. I like Jill, I like Carlos, I like their chemistry between each other. I think they're both fun to play with. I like the weapon sandbox in Resident Evil 3 remake, where for the most part it's single purpose, where your Glock starts off as a basic pistol, but you upgrade it to be a like carbine for mid-range, how your shotgun goes from a slow, clunky zombie stopper to a very quick, almost competition-based shotgun that just chews through crowds. I like how your grenade launcher has different ammo types for different boss-type enemies, and I like how the Magnum gets upgraded and eventually becomes more like a sniper where you're dealing heavy damage to big guys from further away. Each weapon has its own role, and I like the system of finding upgrades for your weapons in the environment and changing them that way much better than the merchant system from Resident Evil 4. While, I like the merchant system and I like what Resident Evil 4 is doing, I don't know, I think there's something really cool about just finding something, knowing which weapon it's going to be paired with, and then that weapon excelling at its role even better because of that. It encourages exploration just like the merchant system, but it's less about arbitrary points and currency and more about just, actual exploration. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 Remake is fucking amazing. I've started playing the Resident Evil 1 remake and I'm really liking that so far, more thoughts on that in the future. But as of right now, the Resident Evil 3 remake is still my favorite one. Now we got a question from Twippy, who is asking, how do I recommend Metal Gear Solid to my friends? Well, back when I was in high school or back towards the start of college, I just kind of force it on people. I'd be like, yes, come over, we are going to watch all the Peace Walker story on YouTube. Or I'd be like, you need to come here and play through all of Snake Eater and I'm going to watch. It would be like a freaking torture session where I just sit people through this stuff. Now, I give copies of Metal Gear to friends as gifts, and I hope they play them, but I don't really recommend stuff outside of my channel, If anything, that whole thing with torturing and forcing people to, get into something that I think is really cool is kind of what this channel's all about with Halo Combat Evolved, which is actually working and I'm actually getting people to play it, so that's pretty fucking good. But in regards to Metal Gear Solid and just a lot of things that I like in life, this channel is more of an outlet for that. I don't find myself recommending things to people. In fact, I kind of am nervous, period, to share my interests with people, just because for a long time, from many different people actually, I was kind of shamed for what I like and told that it's just boring. Like the amount of times I've heard why can't you just be like everyone else? Like you're just the worst sort of thing. Kind of made me not want to share that much with people. So now I just kind of talk about the things I like on this channel, and then when I'm out with friends or meeting people or dates, I just kind of, put on the normal face. And in a way it's good, because now I get to talk more about what other people like, and I've learned to share in other people's interests, and I've learned to, blend in better, I guess. But yeah, I don't really recommend Metal Gear Solid to people outside of this channel because I don't really get to be comfortable around people outside this channel. I just have to pretend. So, yeah. Now we got Dead Spacho coming in here asking a fun question. What is my favorite Mjolnir armor? I might actually do a video of this in the future where I talk about like the best Spartan armor designs or elite armor designs. I think looking at armor in Halo as a whole is important and not just focusing on like specific like Spartan types like 343 does, but looking at the overall universe. But yeah, my favorite Mjolnir armor specifically would be the Mark V. In Halo Infinite, I played until I could make myself look exactly like Master Chief from Halo 1. In Halo Reach, I like rocking the Mark V. I also like the Gungnir armor, but Mark V is that classic Spartan look. A lot of people would say Mark VI just because that was the armor when the series was peaked, but even in Halo 3 or Halo 2, while I love the Mark VI and I respect its legacy, I really wish there was more ways for me to use Mark V in every single Halo game. Just this is Halo, you know? So yeah, Mark V easily takes the cake for me. Another question from Suckass More, this is from the second post I did now. He's asking, do I ever think Halo will bounce back from Infinite, and do I think an open world Halo is worth it? For the first question, I don't think Halo needs to bounce back from anything. Like, again, I'm a firm believer that games don't die, people's interest in them do. I still boot up the classic Halo CE on the original Xbox, I'm still playing Halo 3 and Halo Reach on the 360. Like, it doesn't need to bounce back because it didn't really go anywhere. If a new Halo game gets made, that's really good, awesome, but like, yeah, I don't really view a game's success or legacy as dependent on how popular it is, right? You'll have like a whole bunch of people making these really stupid posts like, oh yeah, the Harry Potter game that came out, its player count has dipped, and it's like, well, yeah, no shit, it's a single player game, so only the hardcore people that really love that game are going to keep playing it. So I don't believe in player counts. I don't believe in any of this kind of shit, which is part of the reason why I hate live service as a model, because it's just a toxic way of thinking of games. But yeah, I think Halo has a lot of love from the community, so there's bound to be another one at some point. Maybe it's going to be bad, but even if it is, we'll always have the good ones. And then, do I think open world Halo is worth it? Absolutely. Halo, its principles, okay, there's three things it's really about, okay? So, in Halo, you're supposed to have something that is mechanically deep, where you're constantly making decisions on the fly in what the creators called 30 seconds of fun, where you approach an encounter, you set yourself up with the weapons you think you're going to need for that encounter, you make your switches of weapons based on the enemies you're fighting in that encounter, and then, you come out on top or you die, and then you just rinse and repeat. That's the whole 30 seconds of fun philosophy, and that's where Halo CE, single purpose sandbox, and the shields and health, and the enemy balancing all comes into play. The second tenet of Halo is, really fun party multiplayer. It's not supposed to be sweaty, and online it's gotten really sweaty, especially nowadays where you have like crossplay and PC players. I'll turn like crossplay off just because it's insufferable playing with people who are just there because they feel a need to win, and they'll quit if they're not winning by a large margin or if they're losing and all that kind of stuff. Like, Halo is supposed to be played for fun. Bunch of guys in a room getting together and freaking out when someone has a sword or a rocket launcher. And then the third tenet is this feeling of wonder and awe, a feeling of mystery, dread, and exploration. And that third tenet is what I truly believe an open world Halo game could really capitalize on. The other two are pretty easy to handle, even though 343 keeps fucking it up. But that third one there, I made a video recently, I'm sure you've already seen it, talking about how like an open world Halo game could work. The boundaries are already set. The transitions between the different biomes could just be a tunnel, a teleporter, flying over mountains. Like, you could have really kind of boxy boundaries like Halo's already has always had. You don't need to split it off into like island chunks, but like, yeah, just that feeling of seeing this mysterious vista and then being able to walk towards it and get there and then just become more confused because you're like, okay, I'm here now. I see suggestions of what this might be. I see suggestions of what might be going on here, but you'll never get answers from these giant, mysterious artifacts. And the few times you do, will either be like, whoa, or will be like, oh. So yeah, an open world Halo game is worth it. I really think it would translate well to that. Not in the Far Cry sense, but like in a Halo sense, but just wandering, being mystified at what you see. Now our last question comes from Zyethel, who just asked, what is my favorite Metal Gear spin-off? Now, when it comes to the Metal Gear spin-off games, like in terms of gameplay, I think everyone agrees that Revengeance is the peak of quality there, but in terms of, for me personally, definitely not from a gameplay perspective, but going back to when we were talking about like Snatcher and Police Knots and visual novels, I really like the presentation of the story within the first Metal Gear Acid. I like how it's like, okay, Snake's in here, and it's not nanomachines or future technology, but these people really do just have fucking supernatural powers. Fucking deal with it. And I think a game where you had Snake going up against these unexplained supernatural threats is more true to life to games like Metal Gear Solid 1 or Metal Gear Solid 3 than, 4 and 5 with the, oh yeah, it's nanomachines, oh yeah, it's parasites, that's just, yeah. But then Acid has this whole plot on a plane that gets like creepy with these floating dolls, and Snake might have like two like souls living within him, and that's pretty cool. So I don't really enjoy any of them for gameplay, but for story, the first Metal Gear Acid is pretty cool to me. And that's that. We had a lot of questions this time around, and I had fun answering all of them. If I missed something, or you want me to bring something else up, or you have a question to ask, go ahead and leave it down in the comments here. I'll do another post again asking for questions for a future Q&A because again, I really have fun doing these. But yeah, Kofi's blessings on you all. And this has been Kofi. That would be like sacrilegious. This has been Pliskin, a mere servant of Kofi. Over and out.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.